Hello, hello, and welcome to Practical Magic for Entrepreneurs, Doing the Impossible. Now, you might be wondering, what is all this magic business about anyway? You might be thinking, well, I've done fine with my life so far. There's no guarantee that magic will get me what I want any faster than I'm already getting it. And you might be thinking, well, who is this sage guy? Now, you might already know me, and if you do, welcome. If you don't know me, welcome also. I'm really happy that you're here. I'm super excited to be sharing about magic with you today, and I'm going to leave you with some practical tips that you can use and also tell you later on in the call how you can get more of me if you want it. Now, I'm going to be sharing slides with you, and I'm going to do a little experiment to track the slides. And if you can't see the slides, I want you to make comments in the comment area of the webinar, because I want to make sure that that you're able to see the slides. I did one of these before, and for some reason the slides didn't work, and I want you to be able to see the slides. It's also important that you kind of get a sense of who I am as well. I'm going to tell you about my magical pedigree, as it were, in a moment. But first, I want to address the effectiveness of magic. You see, magic is actually ancient technology that's been used for centuries. Now, it's also been used effectively, I might add. Now, science came along about 350 years ago and told us that what we'd been doing for centuries, and actually millennia, wasn't working anymore. And we began to worship the God of science. And we sort of left metaphysical science, or the science of the invisible world, in the background because, well, it can't be proved anyway. And, you know, this was a mistake, a huge mistake, I think. And I'm going to give you some basic education about magic on this call. And these are things that a select group of people, like all this magic stuff, is something that a select group of people knew many moons ago, but have forgotten, right? Things have changed now, right? All that knowledge that used to be available only to a very few, right? Like if you were if you were a priest, or if you were one of the wealthy, then you knew about these things. But now you can know about them whoever you are, and the only requirement is that you have eyes to see and ears to hear. Now, there's a quote by Arthur C. Clarke, and I'm going to switch over to the slides, and we're just going to hope that this works. Press the right button, Sage. All right. Here we go. This is the right button. We're going to share the screen, and we are going to go immediately here. Right? So this is a quote by Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And just so you know, I'm actually going to leave the slides. I'm going to leave the slides on this sort of view where you can see all this junk around it, because I don't want it to disappear. So so you're just going to have to deal with like seeing a little bit of the background, and that's kind of what magic is anyway, seeing a little bit of the background, a little bit behind the scenes, behind the wires. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Now, I like to do this with this sentence because any sentence that has an is in it means that the subject and predicate can be reversed, right? So you could actually say magic is indistinguishable from any sufficiently advanced technology, right? We do this because the subject, what we're talking about, is magic, not technology. Now let's just say that in addition, anything else. So here's our first one. And then anything that's not distinguishable from something else might as well be it, right? So let's just take that indistinguishable piece out, and we end up with Clarke's third law being essentially magic is advanced technology, or advanced technology as magic. Now, this may not have been his intent, but it certainly works linguistically. And I'm going to spend the next few minutes telling you why this is not such a radical idea. In fact, I think by the end of our time together, you'll agree with me that the technology of magic is powerful indeed. Now, if we know where to look for magic and what magic really means. So I want to define magic, and I want to define magical tools, right? And let me just start out by saying that you are a wizard. You are. Now, you might not think you're a wizard, but I do. And despite what you might think, I know you're a wizard, right? And I think you'll be convinced when we're done as well that you're a wizard. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, right? And in the process, well, I might have something to teach you about magic and wizardry, just maybe, right? So one of the things that's true about me is that I'm a maker, right? This is me. I'm a maker. Ever since I was 3 or 4 years old, I've made things. Like sometimes these things were just practical and sometimes they were very impractical. Read art, at least on the surface. And as you'll learn, creativity is one of the primary reasons why we exist on the planet. Now, I drew things on paper, cut things out of paper, sculpted things with paper mache. I even drew this giant mural on the wall of my room when I was a teenager. And little did I know that all this creativity was actually preparing me for an apprenticeship in wizardry. Now, my parents didn't know what to do with me. I was sort of an Energizer bunny of creating things. And I didn't have enough allowance money to order these big blacklight posters from my room. So I looked at the tiny little drawings. There were these little catalogs that you could get that had little tiny drawings of the blacklight posters. And I would look at them. And I said, well, I'm going to have those blacklight posters. I'll just replicate them. So I took my blacklight tempera paints that I'd gotten from the store for $4, and I took some big sheets of paper that I had, and I basically copied them over so that I had what I wanted just through the creation. Now, I got those blacklight posters. They weren't exactly the same. I didn't go through the normal channels, but I simply created what I wanted with a new and different set of materials. Now, this is the primary thing that you do when you manifest or generate anything. It's not that you make a model of it or a simulation of it, but the mental model in your mind comes first before the creation of anything. I'll tell you more about that later. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So don't worry, though. You don't have to be an artist of any kind to go through this process or even be a maker. You just need to keep an open mind about how creatively you show up in the world, and I'll tell you more, right? And so as I got older, I began to notice that my ability to visualize things and then have them come into being was really profound. I'd stare at a candle flame and imagine the face of the person that I was supposed to meet next, and then like clockwork, boom, I would meet them a couple of days later. Now, remember this, because part of the manifestation process we'll talk about in a bit is consciously forgetting about what you've done and allowing the unconscious to sort your world for you. But more about that a little bit later, okay? In my 20s, now this is a pretty amazing story, I made a pronouncement that I wanted to be a homeowner by the time I was 30. Now, this was in the 80s, and this was during a time that home prices were such that and wages were such that a 20-something couldn't really dream of owning a house. You know, I had a job, and I had a job that met my needs, but I didn't have really a lot left over, and I actually visited my realtor and said, show me houses, right? And she did the math with me and said, well, you don't have enough money to own a house. And I said, that's okay. Let's just look at houses anyway. And I'm sure that she just thought I was nuts. Then all of a sudden, as if by magic, I came into a bunch of money. Almost by accident. If you want to know the story about the accident that happened, you can actually listen to my TED Talk. It's only 6 minutes long, and it will definitely inspire you. You know, it outlines the miracle of how I survived the fall down the 300-foot cliff inside the car. And that is for another story, but it is the reason that I'm able to be presenting this from my home, where that I've owned since then. So in addition to this practical aspect of magic, which has enabled me to stop almost any job that I don't like anymore and get any job that I do like and achieve success with it, right? Despite the fear-mongering of some of my dearest friends and associates. And now I know they were just trying to help me when they said that's impossible. But fortunately for me, I never believed them. So let me give you these definitions so that you understand how my world works, okay? A wizard. A wizard is a person of either gender, and I know people think that wizard refers to men and witch refers to women, but wizard skills can be had by anyone, and I think that wizard should be a term that women take back because it's a term of power, and we all deserve to be wizards. A person of either gender who is living their life the way it was designed to be lived, and with a balanced feeling of power and with knowledge and skills to do things others might think impossible. Now, this is a little bit of a complicated explanation, but I want you to notice that there's nothing in there about being toting a wand that shoots sparks. Being a wizard is actually something that needs to be lived. And let me give you the definition of magic, right? Because that's also important since we're talking about both wizards and magic, and I have the School for Wizards. So magic is a set of tools and techniques that wizards can use to influence probability in the direction of what they desire. When wizards do this effectively, it can seem like they are doing the impossible, but wizards are living by the same universal laws as everyone else. Now, I say this because the title of this webinar is Doing the Impossible. And for all intents and purposes, when you learn to do magic correctly, you will be doing the impossible. Like, to anyone who could have predicted, they would have said that, oh, I didn't mention that when I bought this home, when I was in my 20s, I was 29 years old. Like, I moved into it 3 months before my 30th birthday, right? So that's the power of intention, right? I said I want to be a homeowner by the time I'm 30. And boom, there you go. So I didn't mention that I was actually out of work on disability when I bought this home. So, and I wasn't able to buy the whole home for cash, but there was a whole series of things that you would call luck, but I would call magic, right? And what happens is that your mind creates it first, and then the universe obeys, right? So here we go. You can't map the invisible world directly. That's why they call it the invisible world. It's one of the unique things of the human mind, right? It's important when learning to become a wizard that you understand that it's not about magic tricks. Now, what most people consider magic is sleight of hand, or what's called legerdemain, right? And really, it's misdirection that fools you into thinking that something is true when it's not. Now, wizards can use some of the same techniques that magicians use, but learning to live in harmony with the laws of the universe, including all the natural forces on the planet, is what will give you alternately the power that you desire, right? Now, one of my habits is to track modern scientific discoveries. The reason I do is I compare them to the wisdom that the metaphysical science has been saying for not decades, but millennia. And what I've discovered is that modern science is just beginning to discover the very things that metaphysical science has been telling us for years. Now, one of the most famous and interesting is this notion of fractals. Let me find my fractal slide. There we go. Fractals. Now, science defines fractals as the self-similarity regardless of scale, right? And this is the sort of mathematically pure fractals, but you can see them. If you zoom into a coastline on Google Maps or zoom out, the coastline looks very similar when you look at it up close as far away. Now, this is related actually to an ancient teaching called as above, so below. I'll spare you all of the details about that, but as above, so below is related to an ancient teaching from the magical world that says that which is above is similar to that which is below. And I used to just say as above, so below without making that explanation, but if you read it, it's very important. Like what is above is not exactly like what is below. Now, if you look at the slide that I'm projecting here, you'll see that it's very hard to tell the scale of this. Is this like something seen from a great distance, or is it like an up close detail, like a big canyon, or a tiny little thing? It's very hard to tell because rock formations are the same small as they are large, right? So we're going to talk in a moment about things like manifestation, spells, incantations, rituals, and something mysterious called correspondences. Now, correspondences can seem strange until you remember that which is above is similar to that which is below. Now, below is the mundane world where we live. Now, I say it's mundane. It's actually quite special and magical, but it certainly doesn't have the same numinous quality that we ascribe to the invisible world. But we study what's here, and that gives us a clue to what's there. So magic is actually really powerful technology. And the truth is, it's really rare to find someone who has mastered this technology. The first thing you need to remember is that all of the technology is here, and all the power that you need is here also. So if we say something like, all the power that ever was or will be is here now, which is the beginning of a little prayer that we sometimes do in the School for Wizards. All the power that ever was or will be is here now, right? It's here now. And this is not something that is made up by me, right? There's ancient teachings throughout the ages. In fact, the yogis will say, and Sogyal Trungpa said in a very famous speech, we're afraid of the present, because here's where the power is. The power is right here, right now. Like in the sound of my voice, and the hearing of your ears, and the sound of your voice, and the fingers that type the questions. They're here, right? So here's the deal. And there's a real clever way that this slide all pops in, but I'm just going to give it to you straight, right? The first word says ecology, right? You want to run your business ecologically. Now, what that means is in terms of a system, right? Your business and your life form an ecological system, and too many of us are living our lives outside of the natural system of ecology that wants to be run by us. Number two, you want to activate the power of love and magnetism to create a connection more powerful than any fear that you might have. So check and see if this is true. You want to be so empowered and sure of your purpose that you can serve your world without hesitation. And finally, you want to navigate your curiosity and creativity. And you also want to be able to navigate the invisible world to get you what you want in this one, right? So we cannot manipulate the invisible world, right? It's much more powerful than we are. But if we understand how the invisible world works, then we can get what we want. The wisdom is already there. The power is already there to get us what we want. Now, it is compelling, I admit, and I just had a compelling moment of this myself today, earlier, just, not even 2 hours ago, that I was pretending to be powerless. I was pretending that I had no magical power. But what was the eventual cost of me continuing to live like that? And what is the cost of you living like that? So if you want to activate the power of love, which is the most powerful force in the universe, and your magnetism, in order to create a powerful, fearless connection that allows you to serve your people without hesitation, to activate your creativity, to navigate the invisible world, then boom, you're in the right place. So I use my magical tools every day. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a vulnerable story here. So right now I use my magical tools every day. But in the past, I was reluctant to teach magic because, well, part of me said, well, you can't do that. People aren't interested in the invisible world. They can't see it. No one will believe you. And then another voice would come out of the blue and say, well, this stuff works. Why aren't you teaching it? And then I would talk back to the voice, never do that, right? And I would say, can't you see I'm busy? I've got things to do, right? But apparently Spirit was stronger than me. Well, that's probably not a big surprise to anyone but me. So I finally said yes, 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 yes. And the School for Wizards was born. Now, all I did was to say yes to the impossible divine paradox of my world, right? Now, yes, your life is a paradox, and I'm showing you some paradoxes right here, right? It is a collection of opposites that doesn't demand to be reconciled. A paradox demands to exist. So just like the steps in this figure on the top left, that you can see the man is standing there, and he's going to step up and up and up and continue to step up and up and up and up. So this is an impossibility, right? The stairs cannot continue to go up every time. The round dice, well, in order to have a dice do something, it's got to land on a number, and round dice can't do that. They just keep rolling around and they'll land between a number sometimes. And finally, and this is the adjustment card from my tarot deck called the Sage Tarot deck. And the adjustment card is one of the only cards in the entire deck that don't have a person in it, that doesn't have a person in it. And it has another paradox. If you can look in the sort of lower left-hand corner of that card, there's a thing called the Devil's Pitchfork, which looks on the bottom like it has 2 ends, and from the top like it has 3 ends. Now, the reason that I present these visual paradoxes is because there are loads of paradoxes going on in our lives all the time, even to the point where Richard Rodriguez in the early 2000s wrote a book about paradox called Brown, in which he said he was, he's a gay Catholic, which he's like, that's an impossibility. He said that once he started talking about this, women and men would come up to him with all sorts of things. Like one woman was like, well, I'm a Vietnamese Jew. And just out of the woodwork, people came honoring their paradox. So the paradox can't be solved. There's nothing to fix, right? It just needs to exist. And you can honor that paradox by stepping away from the ordinary and to start to use your mind and body like they were built to be used. Now, in the School for Wizards, and I'm going to just talk about the School for Wizards a little bit just as a context for magic, because what we've done is kind of ordered things. And if I talk you through the way that it's set up there, then you'll be able to understand kind of how the magical world, a little bit about how the magical world is set up. So we study spells, potions, incantations, and rituals. And all right, so that's weird, right? But we use their common names when we study them, which are language patterns, personal intention, prayers, art, and ceremonies, right? Language patterns, personal intention, prayers, art, and ceremonies, right? These are the tools of the magician, and they've been recontextualized in modern language so that you don't have to any longer feel like you're doing something occult, even though you are, when you're studying and doing magic. So I designed the whole school to address the paradox of you, and it allows you to learn or relearn the wizarding skills that you were taught in childhood. Okay? Now, here's the question. Do you really want to drift back into that ordinary muggle world of constant ordinariness? Now, ordinariness is really important. I don't want to get rid of it entirely, but we were meant to be something bigger than most of us have stepped into in our lives. Now, there are rules and laws and practices and ways of living that have been laid out for thousands of years. And the keys to wizardry, believe it or not, have actually been buried in plain sight. They don't even have to be dug up, but they're only available to those who are open to them with eyes to see and ears to hear. And like I said earlier in the call, I'll tell you later how you can join up with the School for Wizards and reclaim your wizardhood. It's really important that I tell you that, but I don't actually have an attachment to you doing it with me. I have an attachment, if I have any attachments at all, to you actually getting your wizard self, to getting who you really are, and to be the maximum limitless individual that you are. I care about that more than anything. So let me just give you some of the principles of wizardry, and you can put these into practice right now. And a lot of these have to do with changes in the way that you see the world, right? So the first thing is that everything is alive. Now, it's easy to think that everything is alive when you see these images of, planets and stars forming, right? So-called primitive cultures were able to believe that the planets and stars were alive. Now, they anthropomorphized the stars and made them human. But here's the modern take on that. What if we believed that the stars were alive in their own way, that they weren't human, not that they were like us, but that we were like them? What if they were not like us, but we were like them? What if the Earth was alive? Would we behave differently toward her if that's what we believed? What good would you do? How differently would you act if you truly, truly believed this? All right, I'm slowing down here because this is a really important concept to get, because we can say, oh yeah, everything's alive, right? But I really want you to get the impact of that, right? Not that anything is exempt. Even man-made things, right, are alive. They've just been reformed. We've put our hand to them, right? So a piece of artwork is alive. Plants and animals are alive. That's easy to understand. But what about rocks, or your tiles on your deck, or your redwood railings, or your glass in your windows? Like, what if all of it was alive? You don't have to believe it for now, but just entertain the idea that that was true. So the second principle that we want to talk about is act as if you're responsible for everything that happens to you. Now, okay, I get it. It's not true. There are circumstances, and there are circumstances that are beyond your control. In fact, what you do is not actually generating the money in your life. It's not generating the contacts in your life. Those things are happening as a result of stuff that's going on in the invisible world and how your unconscious is interacting with the invisible world. But let's just pause for a moment and notice what would be possible if you acted as if you were responsible for everything that happened to you, right? Then you have more control. Then you can take responsibility. Now, we're not saying, believe me here, that everything is your fault, right? Everything is not your fault. Everything is your everything that happens to you is your responsibility. So the more powerful question you can ask, rather than why did this happen to me, would be, what did I do that created this? Right? This is how the power of a wizard comes about. Right? Third, and we've talked about it before, is all the power that ever was or will be is here now. Now, you already have the power that you need to do what is given for you to do in your life. Right? Now, I'm going to say that again because it's sometimes hard to get this. You already have the power you need to do what is given to you in this life. Now, in Napoleon Hill's great book called Outwitting the Devil, in which it's a conference between the devil and Napoleon Hill. And it was not published until many, many, many years after his death because nobody knew what to do with it, because it was like, we can't publish this. It will, ruin, in his lifetime, he thought it would ruin his reputation. But here's what he says. He says to the devil, like, well, gosh, if you've got all this power, like if God has all this power, why doesn't he just vanquish you? And the devil says, well, I've got the same amount of power as God has. I've got power, and so do you. Like, we all access the same power everywhere. And I believe that Napoleon Hill is right about this, right? So the fourth law here, right, is that the path, that there is a path and order to creation or to manifestation, and it has to be followed. So any action or project or undertaking is possible. But if you don't follow the steps of the path of creation, you actually can't move forward. There is a complete method to follow. And if you're wanting to create your wizard self, we call these paths, right? And I'll give you the truth about them. So the first is, then these are in the path of creation, right? In the School for Wizards. The path of creation teaches you how to move from inspiration to planning to action. And in the School for Wizards, I teach this model, and you're going to learn how to seemingly manifest what you want out of thin air, right? And the secret of the secret, the book, The Secret, what was left out of it. And the 4 magical worlds of creation, why you can't enter into them out of order. It's just impossible to get anything done. I mean, you can do it, but you won't get the results that you're looking for. Understanding the path of creation allows you to create anything that you want, whenever you want. It's compelling, isn't it? But I'm going to explain some things to you that are true that you need to know before setting out on this pathway. Second path is the path of personal power. Now, this is the power of spells. Remember, we were talking about spells. Spells are designed to change the path of probability toward what you wish, and they're different from incantations because spells are addressed neither to another person nor to a higher power. And learning the path to power results in a technique to get clear and fast guidance on any topic, right? So the power of spells is that the spell gets made to the powers in the invisible world, not to God and not to another person. The third path is the path of prayer or incantations. Sorry, I wanted to show you the really cute personal power path. So she's got some personal power, doesn't she? So the third path is the path of prayer or incantations, right? There's actually a lost way of praying that was taken out of scriptures around the world about 2,000 years ago. And scientific research has now been done on the effectiveness of prayer, and they're like, oh, wow, it's effective. They've actually gotten statistically significant results on prayer. And they also have figured out the kind of prayer that's most effective. So following the path of prayer means that you learn that you must make a model for what you want. This model makes a request, not in language, although language is powerful, but the models are usually nonverbal models that are requests to a higher power to deliver what you've requested with your model. And there's a name for this power, and there's all sorts of stuff to learn about it. But essentially, you're going to learn what kinds of prayer requests work and which kind of prayer requests don't work. So you'll also learn how to protect yourself when you stir powerful forces in the universe. There are actions that you can take now that will protect you from the wrong stuff. So the next path is actually the path of rituals. So rituals have been around for about, I don't know, tens of thousands of years, if you believe what they say about the cave paintings. Those were the site of rituals, deep rituals that were happening. And science is just beginning to understand what ritual structure is about. And in the structure of ritual lies this key to modeling that allows you to get what you want. So on the models of magic path, which is the ritual path, you learn how to create a model for what you want, and you'll also learn the five-fold structure of any ritual. You will learn how your community contributes and can contribute and will continue to contribute to your wealth. You'll also get to experience the power of ritual firsthand. There's going to be lots of rituals in the School for Wizards, and those are actually free. And it's also free to get information about how to structure your own rituals and when to do them and so forth. The fifth path is actually the path of correspondences. And this is the path of invisible power, right? Studying the invisible requires a model, right? We have to have a model for the invisible plane, and we have to have it on Earth, right? So studying this relationship between this world and our world and the invisible world is the key to almost all real magical work. Now, those relationships are called correspondences, right? Because it's what corresponds to the invisible world that is here on the regular world. And I'm going to give you in a moment a lesson on how they work in just a second. So I just want to spend a moment talking about, and I want to talk about just one of the many reasons why law of attraction doesn't work. Lots of people have done law of attraction, they've tried it and found, oh, law of attraction doesn't work for me, and they've just said, oh, it doesn't work. But there are many things that are left out of the law of attraction, other laws of the universe that create non-delivery of what you're asking for in law of attraction. And while I will discuss many of those later, maybe in another webinar, maybe in another free webinar, I want to say that one of them is called reversal. There is an accidental literally an electrical reversal in the body that has, and it's unconscious, and it has people who suffer from reversal automatically think the opposite of what they want, and it can actually be dealt with really easily by one of the steps that's done in EFT. And if we have time at the end of the call, I'll share that with you. So I'm gonna tell you that the magical teachings, like these essential principles that I've already shared with you, are the same teachings that these people used. Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, King Solomon, Debbie Ford, Plato, Pythagoras, right? Leaders throughout time and history have used these principles to create successful lives using the same wizard skills that are available to all of us. And they did not study this because they were great. They studied it to become great. When you look at great people, they're really very much like you and me. And there are usually a couple of things on the surface that are different, but what's really different is who they are at the deepest level. And this is the second level, is the level that that I'm inviting you into now. It doesn't take extraordinary intellect. It doesn't take extraordinary compassion or extraordinary physical strength to be a wizard. What it does take is a commitment to learning what is needed to be learned. And I'm going to teach you a little bit right now about correspondences. I reminded you about it a couple of times earlier in the call. And I want to introduce something to you right now. If you think of the pack of cards known as the tarot deck, or tarot, depending on where you're from, T-A-R-O-T, it's a pictorial dictionary of the secrets of the Kabbalah. It's even said that a human being on a deserted island can learn everything she needs to know about the world as long as she has a pack of tarot cards. There are many correspondences with each card of the deck. Some are the sense of smell. There's a scent associated with each of the tarot trump cards. Some have letters associated with them, some an astrological sign or element. And each of these correspondences creates a puzzle that you put together. The correspondences in the tarot are literally keys to understanding the invisible world and how it operates. Now, I'm going to choose a card right in the middle of the major arcana, and it's a card that we've already seen. It's called Adjustment. It was right here on the paradox slide. It's called Adjustment. Now, Adjustment sits at the center of the deck, balancing not only the items on the scale, but the set of trump cards as well. Now, the trumps are just a series of cards that are, the tarot deck is very similar to a deck of playing cards. It has an extra royalty card, but otherwise is very similar to the deck of regular cards. But what distinguishes it is this suite of 22 trumps, 0 to 21. And the 11 card is right smack in the middle of the deck. And there comes a time in business and in life when you need to pay attention to the ideals of justice and do what is for the greatest good of all. So when you draw this card, it's a signal that you need to pay attention to the adjusting force of justice, right? And when we study the cards, we don't need to draw them. We can just study them in order. And so notice that you could use the wisdom in this card to get out of a sticky situation in your business, right? So this is taking this very esoteric looking card, and now I'm gonna talk about applying the principles in this card to your business. So this is a skill that you learn. It's a learned skill to take the symbols of a card or of a picture and apply those to your current situation. So we have this devil's pitchfork, this impossible figure. We have the sword that has a shadow on the inside of this cube. We have a light on one side of a scale and a feather on the other. And we have this blue cloth that's being held up by kind of crude ropes with a light behind it. So, and then we can't ignore that all of this is in the context of this cube, this transparent cube that sits at the center of this card. So if we're talking about our business and when we are studying this card is about, on its surface, justice or fairness or adjustment, as I like to call it. Right? Those scales, if you know anything about Egyptian history, are the scales of the judgment of Maat, M-A-A-T, an Egyptian goddess who judged the souls of the dead before admitting them to the afterlife. Now, if your soul was as light as a feather, you would be granted admission to the afterlife. If your soul was not as light as a feather, you would be fed into the jaws of this great hungry crocodile that was waiting right there to devour your soul. So this encourages us in our business to keep it light, and especially keep it light when judging ourselves or other people. Now, if we look down at the sword and we just contemplate it, right? We just want to look at the symbols and contemplate them. The sword and its shadow form this right-angle triangle, the basis for the Pythagorean theorem. And they refer obliquely to Pythagoras himself, one of the grandfathers of Western mysticism. He was not just a mathematician, but a well-rounded philosopher and an adept of the natural sciences. So there are many other things that we could talk about in the context of this card. So I wanted to spend a couple of minutes telling you a little bit more about this, and then telling you how you can play with me in the School for Wizards. So the first is, if you want to be invited to a closed School for Wizards Facebook group that has tons of information about wizard stuff, about the School for Wizards, about what we're studying in the School for Wizards for absolutely free, then just send me an email at sage@theschoolforwizards.com. So sage@theschoolforwizards.com, and say, add me to the Facebook group. And this is my free gift to you, because you will be then invited to the closed Facebook group, where you will be able to ask questions of people that are in the School for Wizards already, who actually have some wizard skills already, and find out a little bit more about the school from them. And you'll also be able to post your questions, right? So many of us have vexing questions about what's up, and we can learn to use the tools of the wizard, the tools of the invisible metaphysical sciences to do this, right? Now, here's the thing. You are a wizard, right? But you've got an option to ignore your own greatness. There is nothing in the world that says you have to step up and be the wizard that you are. And there are plenty of people who say no to their wizard self, like, oh, I'm sorry, I've got to finish raising my kids. I've got to I've got to save up and buy myself a new Mercedes, I've got this other thing that I'm doing, right? I can't spend the time on myself. But believe it or not, your life is not about you. It really is about it really is about who you're here to serve. So I'm just asking you to wake up to your wizard self, not for yourself, but for the people that you're here to serve. And I'm giving you some tools to do it. Now, this stuff works, and it always has. And it works because it is not a magic trick. It works because it is teaching you step by step how to live the way a wizard lives. And then magical things happen, right? It's not about like, okay, I'm going to learn this one thing and then I'll be able to tweak the universe in a specific way. Now, this kind of wizardry does not require intellect. It requires you to be diligent, but it doesn't require you to have a super big brain, and it doesn't require special brain wiring. Now, you might think also that, other people can do this wizard thing, but not me, not me. But really, nothing can be further from the truth. These techniques and ways of being are simple. They're time-tested. They're obvious. And they've been hidden in plain sight for centuries. So how do you study the invisible then? In the School for Wizards, we study things by direct experience. And when you come to the Power of Magic, my main event in November, you don't learn theory. You'll put magic into practice, starting from the moment that you walk in the door, right? And there is a little bit of, learning that has to be done, but really I'm about experiencing it, and this is the thing about the tradition that this is all about, is don't believe me or what I say. Check it out for yourself. Like, learning the secrets of magic and wizardry is actually priceless. And there is an opportunity this weekend to enjoy a 2.5-day retreat in Sausalito, California. I think I have 5 spaces left. If you're in the Bay Area, you're welcome to join me. And there is a discount on the page, and you're welcome to take that discount. If you cannot come even with the discount, then write me about a work scholarship. There may be one work scholarship left so that you can come and do that. What we're doing this weekend is we're learning the secrets of manifestation, right? Like, I've talked about a lot of stuff on the call, but the secrets of manifestation is what we're going to be doing. So we'll learn all the ways that the universe has of delivering you what you want, and why it's important to realize that the universe is the one in charge, not you, right? Not you. So the other thing that I'm doing is offering those of you who are not in the Bay Area a solely it's something that you can do without having to travel to me, and we do it together for a year, and we meet twice a month for 12 months, and it's year 1 of the path of initiation, and all of the things that I talked about, the path of personal power, the path of creation, the path of ritual, the path of correspondences. We study all of that, and we study that through studying the tarot cards, and we do it from a deck that I've created and that is being printed as we speak. So if you sign up for that course, you will get a free deck of the tarot cards that we're using, designed and created by me. Remember, I told you I was a maker. So if you want to do that, you also need to email me at sage@theschoolforwizards.com. And even if you're just thinking about doing it, and you're not sure or you have questions, I want to engage with you, right? This is not one of those webinars where you have to like, it's 10 minutes and you have to make a decision right away. But the second we start the School for Wizards twice a year, and we've already started the first one, and the second one is going to start in less than 2 months. So if you want to do that, you need to get in touch with me right away, or you'll have to wait for another entire year to do it. And this is something that it's really necessary. Well, I don't want to say anything is necessary, but if you want to learn your wizard powers, then this is the way to do it. Now I'm going to stop sharing my slides right now and see if there are any comments. Okay. Doesn't look like there are any. So with that, I will say thank you for listening. It's been an incredible pleasure to talk about magic with you, and I will see you on the downside. And if you are listening to the replay, then you still should call me, or I'm sorry, email me about the School for Wizards manifestation event this weekend if you're in the area, and definitely email me if you are thinking of joining the School for Wizards. That's all for now. Bye-bye.